Corynne Corbett from That Black Girl site, and I'm here at the Hair Room Salon in Manhattan talking to Anthony Dickey, owner, the creator of the product in the Hair Rules line. How are you today, Dickey?
Pretty good. Glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here today. I wanted to talk to you about how you became involved in hair and why you love it so much.
I was 18 and pumping gas in Arizona.
And how did you get from Arizona to New York?
I had my aunt moved to San Francisco and wanted me to come live with her. And she said she put me through beauty school. And I had a cousin who had gone to beauty school and had opened a salon. So it wasn't that far-fetched that like I could do. I wasn't the most academic, kid. School was a distraction for me, so I knew whatever was going to be that I was going to do was going to be creative. I kind of saw the end of my career at 25, and that it was just gonna kind of be a wrap for me. San Francisco's kind of the hair capital of the United States, and there's more hairdressers per capita. Right. So I saw the end of my career, like Mr. Dickey, your client's here, and I was shortly there introduced to a good friend of mine, Danilo, who is an amazing kind of. He's probably one of the most amazing hairdressers the industry has known, and it was the first time that I had put the face of a hairdresser to what magazines or fashion was. I had never really looked at fashion magazines. So
what kind of clients were you doing when you were in San Francisco?
I was an assistant in San Francisco and learning how to do white hair. Okay. And moved to New York in '89 and continued to work in white salons and do white hair. And my cousin, who had a salon, of course they did, they used the irons and the stoves, and they would tease me when I'd go back home and, say, you don't know how to do no black hair, and, you don't know how to do these irons and twirl these irons. And I had moved to New York to work in fashion. So the handful of black models in the fashion industry in the late 80s and 90s, we could name them on one hand. It was Naomi, it was Tyra, Veronica Webb, Beverly Peel, and it's hard pressed to think of who else there was, because beyond them peppered in an all-white industry, fashion was kind of underground until it was exposed by I think shows like E-Fashion Television. But understand that there were also no black hair and makeup in the industry at the time, and so all of the models that we know and those images that are cast around the world in society and publications were peppered with the few black faces that we knew as black people to see of ourselves. And because there was no black hair and makeup at the time, there was no really black hair. There was no black hair being done, so they all wore weaves as a matter of convenience.
And out of fear that their hair would be damaged.
How am I going to show up to this job if this person doesn't know how to do my hair? So weaves came out of convenience. Naomi was known to pop a wig on at the drop of a dime. And really, there was a shift in the mid '90s to where all of a sudden movie houses and record labels realized that they could get more exposure on the covers of magazines, and magazines realized that they could get more magazines sold with having the celebrities on the covers of their magazines instead of the supermodels. And so as you saw in the mid-'90s, supermodels started to kind of fall by the wayside and celebrities took over. And you can't dictate how a music artist comes to the table looking, because it's about their music. And so all of a sudden women started to see different images of themselves, and beyond what straight weaves or what was dictated to them in the past. And wind blowing,
because in the mid-'90s, late '80s, early '90s, I worked with Elle. Yeah. So we know that if all else fails, bring the wind machine.
Exactly.
Bring the wind. Right. It wasn't about a style.
It wasn't about a style. It was get that hair up as high as we can get it because it's just stuck there. Right. And there wasn't a lot of information as much as there were innovative, ways to put a weave in. There was just not a lot of. There still was a missing component among these hair textures, or women who had been relegated to relaxers and grease, or straight styles, and so there was zero standard of hair care for women in their natural hair. Right. And to this day, you even talk to, there's a movement towards women wanting to embrace what's naturally there, because regardless of class or ethnicity, women are becoming much more conscious of their health than the rate of cancer,
Yes.
breast cancer, across the board. And you can talk about obesity all you want to, and I still believe that women are still much more conscious of their health than they've ever been.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're wanting to now become more familiarized with the holistic way of living. And you have women that may have relaxed their hair for some 30 years of their lives, and now are feeling the damaging effects of what that relaxer is doing to their scalp and the hair loss. And I know Chris Rock is getting a lot of flack from his movie Good Hair, but fortunately, he brought something that was really serious and the truth in a humorous way. And there's always good and bad to that, but at the end of the day, it was the truth.
Right.
But I
and
also
people
understand.
aren't ready to talk about their dirty laundry. They think of it as dirty laundry.
Right.
But what is interesting, because I started out as a beauty editor at Elle, is that you realize that I don't care what ethnicity you are, women all have things about their hair that they do. We all have a tendency to go to extremes.
Right.
We just don't know about it. But there needs not be shame about it.
And understand that as many black women have suffered and been relegated to a segregated aisle of hair care for themselves, white women, Jewish women, Spanish women, they're caught in the middle because they don't know which aisle to go to, because they know that the stuff in the white aisle is too drying.
Right.
And then they go to the black aisle to find something that's more moisturizing, but that has a little more grease in it.
Right.
And so they're as confused. And so I think the biggest concern with women who come, we get about 15 to 20 women who come to us on a weekly basis, interested in what transitioning is and wanting to know more about natural hair, and rightfully so.
Right.
And I understand that there's been racism and sexism in the workplace for women, but understand that how you walk through the door is kind of how people will ask you about your hair on your job, and women that have executive positions and so on and so forth. Understand that if a white person asks you about your hair, they're as interested in your texture as you are.
Right. Which
none of us have known up until the recent past what our hair is like. And so not everything should you be upset about. People are just interested and curious about your texture as much as you are. Understand that also, just because there is such segregation in our industry, you've got white salons that don't know what to do with your hair, black salons that could use too much heat and relaxers and chemicals, and then there's these natural salons that are, Bantu knots and twists, and they're just curly. And I didn't develop the book, the line, or any of this because I wanted to take women's choices away from them. The ideal is that healthy hair allows you to be able to have all these styles, but out of choice, not out of despair. And so getting fear and getting women to a place where their natural is good enough. Really, Hair Rules, the book I wrote it to dispel myths, to level the playing field of information that was out there for women. And so it's getting and changing practice within our industry, and Hair Rules is trying to be that advocate for an industry to think outside the box about looking at texture rather than ethnicity.